Okay, so I recorded this video this morning, right off the rip. Two things, big news, double the news, double the fun. Actually, only one of the things is really, really cool. The other thing kind of sucks a lot. But the second thing, so I work a normal job. I'm a normal person. I just happen to do YouTube. I record the video in the morning at like 4 a.m. I go to work in my cubicle. I do my sentence. I leave. In that period of time, this got crazier. So you're gonna see me in the past, and then you're gonna see me again. I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible with all this information. But suppressors potentially on the table, and potentially self-defense completely out the window in the state of California. Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. All right, everyone, I got two things that I want to talk to you about because on this channel, we do the opposite of gatekeep. You will listen, I will talk, you have no other choice. So we're talking about two things. One of them, super exciting. Potential of suppressors coming to the state of California. No, this is not clickbait. There's an actual real chance. There's actual shit happening. Things that are worth talking about, I'm talking about them on the channel. Things that I don't think are worth talking about, I post on X and other social media platforms. So I've already talked about that there, but we're talking about the potential of suppressors actually coming to the state of California, an actual chance of this happening. And we're talking about something that's not so fun in a ban on home defense, self-defense in general, and the use of force, which would, in theory, if this goes through, remove castle doctrine and stand your ground sort of laws that kind of exist in the state of California and replace them with a law that essentially is a duty to retreat law. And if you're unfamiliar with what that means, it means that you have to try to leave. You have to have some sort of omnipotent knowledge to know that you could have just simply escaped without having to use lethal force in a situation where someone is intending on causing you great bodily injury or harm. So let's talk about the good thing first. Well, this is a topic that I've been getting asked a lot about. I'm going to cover a few things here. Suppressors in the state of California. Unfortunately, they are an NFA item. Now, you might be asking yourself, Reno, I've seen you recently post some videos of you shooting guns with suppressors on them. Yes, you have. No, I did not break any laws to do so. Those belong to my employer, Manzano Munitions. I work there part-time. I do a variety of things for the company, and we test out some firearms and suppressors that I might not normally have the ability to get a hold of, but I can take out for demo testing and review for the purposes of their SOT. Now, there was a lawsuit called Sanchez versus Bonta, and now a lot of the times when lawsuits in the state of California or in other states are going through, they're usually being funded and paid for and operated by some sort of larger organization. Well, that's not always the case. People do have the ability to spend their own money and seek out their own legal counsel to challenge laws in the state of California. And that's exactly what Mr. Sanchez did, and now the CRPA is stepping in to help out. So I'm going to read to you a little excerpt from a paragraph in this article from the CRPA. Mr. Sanchez's lawsuit started because he wanted to create a suppressor using I'm paraphrasing, additive manufactured suppressor. So he applied for federal authorization to do so, but he was denied because suppressors are illegal in California. He filed suit, but the district court dismissed the complaint with prejudice, erroneously concluding that suppressors are not arms protected by the Second Amendment because they are not themselves weapons, nor are they essential to the operation of a firearm. So the district court said that things that are not firearms are not arms, which is not what the Second Amendment is about. The Second Amendment is not about firearms, it is about arms, which covers much more than a gun. So the CRPA decided to reach out to kind of get in contact and step in and offer their services with Michelle & Associates and Cooper & Kirk law firms to offer him the help because this is potentially going to have some pretty big ramifications potentially for the Second Amendment in this state as a whole. And it's good if those ramifications are good, right? So there is a legitimate chance that suppressors are actually going to potentially be on the table in the state of California, and that's really exciting. Now, there's another thing that I wanted to talk about that is not nearly remotely as fun, and it is Assembly Bill 1333. So, kind of like LEAT, but just 1333. This was introduced by Assemblymember Zuber. This guy wrote a bill that is essentially getting rid of what we currently know in the state of California as castle doctrine or stand your ground laws. We don't necessarily have stand your ground laws, but generally in the state of California, you can use a firearm, you can use lethal force with a firearm to defend yourself or others for a variety of reasons, including great bodily injury or death. The few things that were really worrisome about this, and now it's kind of hard to talk about these bills this early on in their life cycle because they change so much. So I'm not going to get into all of the nitty gritty specifics, because if I do and you take this 3-4 months from now at face value, chances are the law text might have changed. So we're going to cover just kind of basically, just briefly overview of what this bill is covering. It's removing certain situations where you can use lethal force and prohibiting certain specific situations where you can use legal force. So it's removing some protection that we had, and it's adding some restriction to what was not there previously. So we're in a situation now where we're no longer going to be able to use our firearms to protect ourselves in the same situations that we were before. And we're also going to have duty to retreat. That's going to be the most likely thing that sticks in this of all. So, duty to retreat, what does that mean? Well, in this case, again, we're paraphrasing because things often change this early in the life cycle. If you draw down and shoot someone, you could potentially not be considered justified in that use of lethal force if you could have escaped. If there is any way for you to know. It's kind of worded kind of interesting in my opinion, because the way it's worded, it seems as if it says something along the lines of, if the person could have knowingly or knows that escaping would have resulted in no injury or death. Like, yeah, like fundamentally, if I'm in a situation, if we just look at this kind of like 1,000-foot view, you're in a situation, someone wants to kill you. If you were to vanish, would you have to use lethal force anymore? No, right? So like, I know that the way it's likely going to have to be like prosecuted and whatnot is that they're going to have to prove that you, in the circumstances that you were in, could have or should have known that you could have just gotten the hell out of there. Now, that seems tough to prove, but to put this in, it now shifts the burden sort of towards you in a way of, you're not going to be assumed that you used lethal force justifiably. You're going to have to prove that you had no way of possibly knowing that you could have escaped. Because they're going to say, well, you didn't notice that there was a back alley that was well lit about 50 yards back. And in high school, your 40 time was this speed. So assuming a degradation of your overall speed by, 25%, you could have ran faster than this guy, because look at him. He's got a fucking gimpy leg. You could have gotten away, right? Well, how do you know that? Like, I'm just spitballing. I'm just throwing shit at the wall here. But I don't like having duty to retreat. And it's very clear what the purpose of this is. This is another instance where the Democratic supermajority in the state of California is looking to actively make do on their campaign promise of removing the rights of the people to keep and bear arms, especially outside of the home. This covers stuff in the home and out of the home, but the duty to retreat is the biggest one, in my opinion, as far as how big of a thing changes. So it's another example of them making promises on the campaign trail, following through with it when it's time, and now there is absolutely no way for us to fight this except for relying on this California Rifle and Pistol Association to lobby on our behalf. And the CRPA does an excellent job, in my opinion, of killing a lot of these bills before they get passed. And I'm hoping that you're praying that this is one of the bills that the CRPA is able to kill, because this is a bad one. Not only are we in a situation where we can't legally carry in a lot of places now, thankfully the CRPA in our lawsuit was able to stop some of those locations, but not only are CCWs super expensive now, they're getting more expensive basically everywhere except for some of the red counties. So we got more expensive CCWs. Our CCWs aren't good in as many places. And now we have to prove that we did not have any reason to know that we could have safely escaped if we have to be in that unfortunate situation. Like, let's just be very clear here for a second. I do not want to kill someone. I do not want to ever have to shoot someone. That sounds like it blows. I just am now in a situation where if I do, I know that shit's gonna suck even more. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. It is way too early at about 4:30 in the morning right now. I hope you have a good day. Contact your Congress critters, contact your state assembly members, contact the CRPA, tell them gun laws are kind of stinky doo-doo. Just to wrap this all up, it gets even crazier. So the assembly member that wrote this bill, this was a bill that was essentially supported and probably written by Everytown and all the other gun control groups. So the assembly member tweeted after getting a ton of flack on the internet. This is what he said. AB 1333 was never intended to limit a crime victim's right to defend yourself, your family, or your home. I'm going to pause for a second because the text of the bill literally limits the crime victim's rights to defend themselves, their family, and their home. It's literally what is being removed. There is text in the penal code that exists currently, and they put red lines through it to indicate that that is no longer the law. The goal is to prevent wannabe vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse from provoking violence and claiming self-defense after the fact. We will amend the bill to make this crystal clear. Sir, one of two scenarios has to be the truth. Either you took the money from Everytown and the gun control groups and then didn't read the bill and just submitted it. That's option one in my mind of what is possible and realistic. Option two, you are mentally